Welcome back, friends. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And today, I want you to think about the last person who made you angry. Not because they were right, not because you deserved what they said, but because they found a way inside your mind. Maybe it was a coworker who embarrassed you in front of everyone, a family member who knew exactly what to say to hurt you, a stranger online who insulted you for no reason, or someone you love who deliberately pushed the one button they knew would make you explode. You remember what happened next. Your heart started racing. Your body became tense. Your mind immediately began constructing a response. You imagined what you should say, what you could say, what would finally shut them up. And even after the conversation ended, you kept fighting them in your head. Hours later, maybe even days later. This is where the Stoics would stop you. They would ask, who is controlling whom? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Someone can insult you without owning you. Someone can disrespect you without controlling you. Someone can provoke you, but they cannot force you to surrender your peace unless you give them permission. Today, we're going to talk about exactly what to do when someone tries to provoke you. Because the Stoic response isn't to become passive. It isn't to let people walk all over you, and it isn't to pretend that you don't feel anything. The Stoic response is far more powerful. You learn how to remain in command of yourself when someone else is desperately trying to take that command away. The first thing you need to understand is this. Provocation is a psychological trap. Think about what happens when someone insults you. They throw out a sentence, maybe it's only 5 seconds long, but if you react emotionally, you can spend the next 5 hours thinking about it. They said it once, you replay it 50 times. They moved on, you didn't. That is the trap. The original event is small, but your mind makes it enormous. Someone says, "You're not as smart as you think you are," and suddenly your mind starts gathering evidence. Maybe they're right. No, they're wrong. I should have told them. Notice what's happening. The other person is no longer even present, but they're living inside your head, and you're paying the rent. This is why the Stoics placed so much emphasis on the difference between an event and our judgment about that event. Something happens, then your mind tells you what it means. Those are not necessarily the same thing. Someone laughs at you. The event is, they laughed. Your judgment might be, they're humiliating me. Someone criticizes your work. The event is, they criticized it. Your judgment might be, they think I'm worthless. Someone doesn't reply to your message. The event is, they didn't reply. Your judgment might be, they don't respect me. The Stoics would tell you to slow down. Separate what happened from the story your mind immediately created around it. This simple distinction can change your life, because once you separate the two, you create space, and inside that space, you regain your freedom. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. Again and again, he reminded himself that the mind has enormous power over how we experience events. He knew something we often forget. You don't control the first thing you feel, but you can influence what you do with it. You may feel anger. Fine, feel it. You may feel hurt. Feel it. You may feel embarrassed. Feel it. Stoicism isn't about becoming a stone. It's about becoming the person holding the reins. Your emotions can speak, they just don't get the final vote. Imagine you're driving home after a long day. You're exhausted, traffic is terrible, and suddenly, someone cuts directly in front of you. Your first instinct? Anger, of course. But now imagine you spend the next 10 minutes shouting at them through your windshield. They can't hear you. They may not even know what they did. And yet your entire nervous system is paying the price. Who lost those 10 minutes? The other driver? Probably not. You did. This is the hidden cost of reacting. Every unnecessary reaction charges you a price: your attention, your energy, your peace, your time, and your character. Because every time you react impulsively, you reinforce the habit of impulsive reaction. But every time you pause, you strengthen self-command. This is why your next move matters, not because you have to be perfect, but because you're training yourself. Think of every provocation as a repetition in the gym. Someone insults you? That's a repetition. Someone cuts you off? Another repetition. Someone misunderstands you? Another repetition. Someone tries to make you jealous? Another repetition. And every time you pause instead of exploding, you become stronger. Now let's talk about something most people misunderstand. Silence. Silence is not weakness. There is a kind of silence that comes from fear, but there is another kind that comes from strength. It's the silence of someone who doesn't need to prove themselves. Someone insults you. You don't immediately retaliate. Someone challenges your intelligence. You don't start defending your entire identity. Someone wants an argument. You don't automatically participate. You simply breathe and ask yourself, is this worth my peace? That question is incredibly powerful, because not every battle deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves your response. Not every accusation deserves a courtroom. And not every person deserves access to your emotional world. Think about social media. Someone you've never met writes something insulting underneath your post. You read it. Your blood starts to boil. You type a response, delete it, type another, and send it. Then you return 5 minutes later to see whether they responded. Now you're checking, waiting, thinking, arguing, all because of someone you may never meet. That's not freedom. That's emotional captivity. And the most disturbing part? The other person may have forgotten about the exchange already while you're still carrying it. So the next time someone provokes you online, ask, does responding serve my values? Not, can I win? Not, can I embarrass them? Not, can I get the last word? But, does this serve who I want to become? That question changes everything. Because here's something the Stoics understood. You are not only responding to other people, you are shaping yourself. Every reaction is a vote for the person you're becoming. When you choose patience, you strengthen patience. When you choose restraint, you strengthen restraint. When you choose revenge, you strengthen revenge. When you choose bitterness, you strengthen bitterness. Character is built through repetition. And sometimes the greatest victory of your day will be invisible. Nobody will applaud it. Nobody will know about it. You'll simply walk away from an argument you could have won because you realized winning wasn't worth becoming someone you didn't respect. Now imagine something more difficult. What if the person provoking you is someone you cannot avoid? A boss, a coworker, a parent, a partner, or someone in your family. You can't simply block them. You can't disappear. You have to deal with them. This is where Stoicism becomes practical. You stop asking, how do I control them? And start asking, how do I control myself? Maybe you need to establish a boundary. Establish it. Maybe you need to say, that way of speaking to me isn't acceptable. Say it calmly. Maybe you need to report inappropriate behavior. Do it. Maybe you need to leave the relationship. Leave. Stoicism doesn't mean tolerating abuse. It means taking wise action without allowing hatred to consume you. There is a difference between protecting yourself and poisoning yourself. You can close a door without spending the rest of your life staring at it. You can leave someone behind without carrying them inside your mind. You can say no without writing a 10-page explanation, and you can move forward without waiting for an apology. This may be one of the hardest lessons you'll ever learn. We often tell ourselves, I'll have peace when they admit they were wrong. I'll move on when they apologize. I'll be okay when they finally understand what they did to me. But think about what you're saying. You're putting your peace in someone else's hands. What if they never apologize? What if they never understand? What if they tell everyone a completely different version of the story? Are you going to surrender your future to their inability to take responsibility? No. At some point, you have to reclaim your life, not because what happened didn't matter, but because you matter more than endlessly reliving it. And this brings us to one of the most powerful questions you can ask when you're provoked. what would a wise person do next? Not, what would my anger do? Not, what would my ego do? Not, what response would hurt them the most? Ask, what would wisdom do? Maybe wisdom says nothing. Maybe wisdom walks away. Maybe wisdom sets a boundary. Maybe wisdom apologizes. Maybe wisdom speaks firmly. Maybe wisdom says, "You're entitled to your opinion," and ends the conversation. The answer isn't always silence. The answer is alignment. Your response should match your values. That's what makes it Stoic. And there is another idea worth remembering. People often reveal themselves through the way they treat others. A cruel person may be carrying pain you know nothing about. An arrogant person may be desperately trying to feel important. A constantly critical person may be deeply unhappy with themselves. Understanding this doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it can make it easier not to take every attack personally. Imagine someone walking past you, shouting in the street. You might think, they're having a difficult day. You don't immediately think, I must join them. But when someone becomes emotionally aggressive toward us, we often do exactly that. They become angry. We become angry. They become cruel. We become cruel. They lose control. We lose control. Why? Because we mistake emotional contagion for connection. You don't have to catch someone else's emotional state. Their anger is not a command. Their insecurity is not your responsibility. Their opinion is not your identity. This is where real strength begins. Not when you stop caring, but when you stop allowing everything to control you. You can care deeply and remain composed. You can love someone and still set boundaries. You can disagree without becoming hateful. You can defend yourself without becoming consumed by revenge. This is emotional discipline, and emotional discipline is freedom. So let's make this practical. The next time someone provokes you, do 5 things. First, pause. Don't give them your immediate reaction. Second, breathe. Slow your body before you make a decision. Third, separate the facts from your interpretation. What actually happened? What story am I adding? Fourth, choose your response deliberately. Silence, a boundary, conversation, distance, action, choose. And fifth, let it go when the situation is over. Don't continue the fight in your head, because this is where so many people lose. The conversation ends, but the argument continues internally. They go to sleep angry. They wake up angry. They tell someone else. They replay it again. The other person has moved on, but they're still fighting. Don't do that to yourself. You deserve better. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need to correct every false opinion, and you don't need the last word. What you need is command over yourself. Because imagine reaching the point where someone tries to provoke you, and you can feel the anger rising. But instead of immediately acting on it, you smile slightly and think, interesting, here's another opportunity to practice. That is transformation. The situation hasn't changed. The person hasn't changed. You have. And that's what Stoicism is really about. Not changing the world so that you can finally be calm, but changing yourself so that the world has less power to disturb your center. The ocean can rage. The stone doesn't need to become the ocean. The wind can scream. The mountain doesn't need to scream back. Someone can bring chaos into the room. You don't have to become chaos. And maybe that's the image I want you to remember today. Be the person who can remain standing when other people are losing their balance. Be the person who can hear an insult without immediately becoming one. Be the person who can receive criticism without collapsing. Be the person who can set a boundary without hatred. Be the person who can walk away without revenge. Be the person who can say, "You don't control who I become." Because that's the real victory. Not defeating them, but defeating the version of yourself that they were trying to provoke. The angry version. the impulsive version, the insecure version, the version that needs everyone to approve, the version that needs the last word. You don't have to be that person anymore. The next time someone pushes your buttons, pause, breathe, observe, choose. And remember, their behavior belongs to them. Your response belongs to you. Their words belong to them. Your character belongs to you. Their opinion belongs to them. Your values belong to you. And your peace, protect it. Because life will continue giving you difficult people. There will always be someone who misunderstands you, someone who criticizes you, someone who envies you, someone who tries to embarrass you, someone who wants a reaction. You cannot eliminate all of them, but you can become harder to shake. You can become calmer, wiser, more deliberate, and more difficult to manipulate. And eventually, you'll realize something extraordinary. The goal was never to make other people stop provoking you. The goal was to become someone who no longer needs them to stop. That's freedom. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, don't give them what they're looking for. Don't give them your attention. Don't give them your dignity. Don't give them your peace. Take a breath, stand firmly in your values, and choose the response that your future self will respect. Because the strongest person in the room isn't always the loudest. Sometimes it's the person who could retaliate, but chooses restraint. Sometimes it's the person who could destroy the conversation, but chooses wisdom. Sometimes it's the person who walks away with their character still intact. Remember, you don't control who knocks on the door of your mind, but you control who you let stay. Stay calm. Stay disciplined. Stay difficult to provoke. And most importantly, stay in command of yourself. If this message gave you something valuable to carry into your day, subscribe to the channel and join us for the Daily Drop. Every day, we'll take timeless Stoic wisdom and turn it into practical strength for modern life. So when the world gets loud, you can remain steady. When people provoke you, you can remain free. And when life tests you, you can become stronger instead of bitter. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay steadfast.